Are live.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to We the People of Eastern Kentucky. You got your old host here, Terry V. Salyer, and
Christopher Cody Allen.
yes, sir. We're going to come to you tonight. We have a lot of questions and things, and this is our fourth week in a month where we have questions from you all that we'll answer from the audience for email, this and that. So throughout the podcast tonight, if you've got a question you'd like for us to discuss and all that, or have an opinion, please do that. Hit us up right away, and we'll address that. We've got a few questions we're going to start off with tonight. As you know, we the people of Eastern Kentucky, have three facets that we looked at. Number one is economic development. We have a lot of guests that come in and tell us about things. Number two is community involvement. We want you all to get involved with the communities that you have back there where you're listening from. And number three is political impact. We got some great people that's coming up.
We do. Some of the people that you mentioned a little bit earlier, John
Yep.
Blanton is going to be coming in. You've mentioned a few times on the podcast. We're looking forward to seeing people like him.
April the 23rd, he'll be here with us. He's going to share what's happened, what passed, and what things that they were working on in this legislative session. That it'll be over on April the 14th, so he wanted to come on the 23rd and kind of give us a breakdown of what's happened there. Also, Judge Matt Wireman's going to come. We're trying to get a date on him. And next week, we're going to have a special guest from down in the Hazard area. Like I said, we are the people of Eastern Kentucky. He is running for a representative down there, and we're going to have him in next week and talk about some things. He is covering Breathitt, Perry, and I think Knott County and stuff, and he's going to talk over a few things. But get your questions and answers and all that together and shoot them to us tonight. And so we got some great things and some topics we're going to talk about. Tonight is political impact, and what has political impact had on our nation and also on our state. And what I'd like to do, since we have a two-party system.
I'm still feeling the impact.
You're still feeling it, huh?
Yeah,
I want to read the platforms just a little bit, and so you can get some kind of idea. And those of you out there can say, well, I think I'm a Democrat, or I may think I'm a Republican, and then we'll get to Cody's point of view. And
I'm a registered independent.
Registered independent, that's right. All right, so these are just a few things. So if this applies to you, then give us your comments. Democratic Party's platform for America, economic policy. They're interested in reducing income inequality. So I guess that's promoting the middle class, right?
In a sense. Now, the Democratic Party recently has been a lot more focused on income equity. And I don't think a lot of people know the difference between inequality and equity, which we can go over that a little bit more.
Okay. They also look at increasing the minimum wage, which has happened, I think, in January in some of the states and things of that nature. Also, looking at taxation. You know, they believe that the 1% of people in America are paying not a whole lot of taxes compared to the middle guy and all that kind of stuff, so they want to even that and span that out. They want to expand access to health care and education, and I think they've been successful with that with the Affordable Care Act and some of the things that they've done. And economic stability and infrastructure investment, I think we've seen a whole lot of that. Today we had the mishap in Baltimore. We need to be praying for those people up there and all that stuff that happened at the bridge. But
absolutely
noticed recently that a lot of the infrastructure bills that have passed have been for building bridges, and one in particular is the one there over the Ohio River connecting Ohio and Kentucky, and Senator McConnell was instrumental, I think, in getting some of that going, along with our wonderful president that we have. But they got the money appropriated to be able to build that bridge. So infrastructure.
We have that specific bridge that you're talking about is a direct main artery into Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It is one of the largest shipping areas. It turns out, a lot of people don't know this, especially here in East Kentucky. It turns out that Kentucky is perfectly situated in the United States to be a hub for shipping all across the U.S.
Very centralized. You know, a lot of people come into there. In the healthcare thing, we've heard a lot of talk about universal healthcare and whether we can pay for that or, what that's happening. One of the big differences in the parties is education. As we know, the Democratic platform is investing in education in public schools and early childhood development, K through 4. They're looking at that. That's one of their primary platforms that they do in education. Also, climate change, as we know, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and we've seen a lot of the EV stuff come around. I saw a new one called Eli today, which is a foreign company that's trying to dig up investments, and it's you ever seen one of those little small cars? It's about that big, but it's electric. It's an EV.
Yeah.
And they're using it in cities and stuff.
Yeah, I saw
rather than scooters and bicycles and all that, they can park that thing right in there. I thought that was pretty interesting, as I saw today.
It is. And then, my thought is, if I ever can get me one of those, I'll just put it in the back of my truck if I ever run out of gas.
You probably could.
We just chug it on down to the gas
station. Be charged up and go get you a tank of gas.
Carry it around in the back of the truck.
That's good. One of the other topics they're looking at in education is tuition-free community college and things, and also they want to do some reformation in student loans, and there's been a lot of forgiveness there and stuff. But climate change is the thing that people are looking at. The emissions, renewable energy, as we just talked about, and things, promoting conservation and environmental protection, and I've seen a lot of changes just recently that our governor has done in the state of Kentucky. He's actually put a lot of money into the state parks, and they've got upgrades and things like that because of the tourism impact that has happened for Kentucky. A lot of people are coming to our state parks and things like that, so that's been good. Excuse me. Social issues, social justice and equality, women's rights, and racial justices, as you've seen recently, and some of the things have happened. And one of the things that was interesting to me, they even had immigration reform in their platform. As we know what's happened down with them rejecting the situation that they wanted to do down in Texas, and it's a crazy thing down there. If you have an opinion or which way or what they're doing down in Texas with the feds and Texas and their rights and all that, give us an email, let us know, and we'll talk about it.
Currently, polling is one of the highest issues in America for voters.
It is. Yeah, immigration, they have pushed it kind of to the top of the thing, I think.
It's understandable.
Civil liberties and human rights is a big thing. Democrats believe in religious freedom. They believe in freedom of speech, the First Amendment, and a lot of them, the civil rights movements has come out of Democratic platforms, back through history. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the big things that a lot of people are looking at right now is foreign policy. And Democrats believe in diplomacy, I guess, and cooperation with international partners. And I think some of the biggest successes that we've had, particularly keeping the peace in the Middle East, not necessarily recently, but what's happening over there has been the coalitions that we've been able to put together and to be able to help and work and trying to keep that peace. It's amazing to me because of what's happening. I think things could have accelerated a lot worse. It has the capabilities of doing that, I think.
I don't know. I mean, I have conflicting thoughts, and like I said, we can go over this more as the podcast goes on. I have strong conflicting thoughts about our foreign policy. On one hand, that'd be a complete conversation about NATO and the relevance of it, and the fact that I'm possibly going to send my child to die for Lithuania. So, I mean, we can discuss that a little more.
Sure. Let's talk about the Republican Party. You can look at these things if you are a Republican. These are some of the things that's in their platform. Free market principles, limited government intervention. They look at the economy and lower taxes, naturally, which when we had the Republican regime in there, I guess you could say, they had a tax break for the upper 1%, which helped them extensively. Promoting economic growth and reducing regulations in businesses, in particular, they've done a lot of that. Fostering entrepreneurship and job creation, which we see now that we've had a big boom in job creation, and particularly in the last 2 years. But healthcare, they look at market-based solutions to healthcare, and they even look back to scaling the Affordable Care Act back, and they want to look into reforming Medicare and Medicaid, and increase consumers' choice in healthcare. That means they want to have a cafeteria thing where people can choose what they want to do. Their education's a whole lot different than the Democratic platform. They are looking for increased school choices as charter schools and voucher programs and things of that nature. They're getting more away from the public education thing, I guess, but they want to reduce the federal government's role in education, and that's one of their strict policies there. Taxation, they believe in lowering taxes, fiscal conservation, and also reducing the national debt and deficit, which we can talk about that all day. Just recently, with our last regime that was there, how much it increased over in 4 years. But these are just platforms. Climate change, I don't know any Republicans that I've known of that believe in climate change.
Well, no, I don't necessarily agree with that. I've got quite a few Republican friends that'll. Now, they are a little more considerate. They're a little more deeply. They're a little more moderate on the total effect of humans on climate change, but they agree that the climate is definitely changing.
Yeah, well, it has to. I don't think we can, look at any difference here. Social issues, they believe in protection of religious liberties. They look at crime, drug abuse, law and order, and they support law enforcement, which they stand on their platform. Foreign policy, they believe in a strong national defense. They've always been for our armed forces and appropriation for money in the budgets and things. They look for a robust military base. That means we want to show strength and power when we're having to deal with the others on the international sector. So, but they believe in that military presence wherever it is. They believe in a combat terrorism queue where they want to get against that, and we can see basically what happened in Iran when President Bush was in there and went in there and basically told them that we're going to boot you out of the regime that you got with Saddam Hussein and all that kind of deal. So they're into combat terrorism and things like that, and to help other countries push democracy. Those are the two platforms that got out there, gang, today. So we would love for you to give us some comments back and see what you think about the Democratic platform that they have or the Republican platform, and do on that. But that's what I've got as far as where we're at. I've got a couple questions I want to throw out there tonight, and when we get to those questions, hopefully that'll stir some interest or some feedback from you all. But first I want to ask a question, and Cody, you can jump in here any time too.
Sure.
Have the political party system in America failed today?
Yes. You mentioned earlier that we have a two-party system.
Yes.
We absolutely do.
Right.
We have a two-party system mainly because they made decisions quite a long time. Well, you remember the time of Ralph Nader.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
the Green Party.
The Green Party.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When that happened, and a lot of people don't know this either, when that happened,
Ross Perot,
Ralph Nader, Ross Perot, when these people from outside parties coming in, Ross Perot in particular, when he come in and caused the loss from Bush to Clinton.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, the Republican Party had the idea of, we got to make sure this never happens again, and then the Democratic Party started setting up roadblocks to make sure that it would be very difficult for an independent in particular to get onto the ballot. And when I say very difficult, I'm talking millions of dollars.
Well,
hundreds of thousands of signatures.
Ross was the most successful independent candidate running for president in history.
To this point, yes.
Yeah, he got 19% of the vote, but he was loaded.
To this point.
He spent a lot of his money to be able to do that, because one of the things, and the people that say the failure is on limited choices. Critics say that that restricts voter turnout because they push them into are you a Republican, are you a Democrat, and they don't give enough media time and they don't get enough press, I feel, for the independent candidates that are out there that maybe have an alternative to offer.
I absolutely agree with that. Me personally, I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting, and I personally believe that, don't get me wrong, there have to be some guardrails. You have to reach, for example, say a 5% poll rating.
Threshold, yeah.
Through 5% threshold. You have to reach, say, so many signatures, whatever the case may be. Some threshold that shows that you're not, that you're a legitimate candidate and not vermin supreme. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. But once that threshold is reached, I honestly believe that there should be ranked choice voting across the entirety of the United States. Now, to me, it is amazing that.
Now, there may be some people out there that don't know what ranked choice voting.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go into that.
Yeah, explain that to them a little bit.
Ranked choice voting, basically, in summary, means that so for example, if you had an independent running, a Green Party candidate running, a Democrat running, and a Republican running, ranked choice voting is going to look at the voter tally for all those and then rank them based on who got the most votes, who got the second most, who got the third most, so on and so forth. So it's literally you're ranking the candidates.
Okay. And then the top two run in a runoff or something like that? Or?
That's generally the way it works.
Right.
It would open the system up to be able to that's what I was about to say. That it amazes me that across the United States, there is no consensus of how vote. I mean, so you look at Ohio and how they do the, what's the word I'm looking for? The caucus, the Ohio caucus.
Yeah, the caucus versus the primary.
Right, the caucus versus the primary. There's no consensus across the United States. We have 50 states, and all 50 states do voting in a different way.
Yeah, caucuses, you basically, it's based on the tallies that you get in votes will determine the percentage of the delegates that's available through caucus. A lot of states don't have winner-take-all. Some do. It's primarily in the primaries that they do that, but some do winner-take-all in caucus. But the caucus thing is you really get to get your candidate to get some of those delegates available.
One of our commenters said Theodore Roosevelt ran as an independent in the last campaign and split the vote and lost. The Bull Moose himself. He wasn't actually an independent. He was a part of the Bull Moose Party. You're right. He did split the vote. Now, one of the things that Roosevelt's known for, a little history piece for you. Mm-hmm. Roosevelt was shot.
Oh, yeah.
Before going up and doing a speech on stage. And the man went up on stage to give a campaign speech and did a 3-hour speech with a lead ball in his chest while bleeding out.
That's a president right there.
And his exact words were, "No one can stop a bull moose."
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, and I think like what we've just said here, we talk about the Green Party, independent parties and things, by having a lot of people that are dissenters of the two-party system, they believe that they're pushed. You're either going to be a Republican, you're either going to be a Democrat, and they're really not given that choice of the independent. And a lot of voters don't like that. For example, there's a situation that we're experiencing right now in our election for this year. There's two, one from the Republican side, one from the Democratic side, but there's a tremendous amount of voters out there right now that don't like either candidate. So they're frustrated, and they don't.
73% of voters polled,
and they're sitting back thinking, "Oh, do I sit this one out, or do I vote for the least of the two evils?" and things like that. So, my thing in democracy today is number one, folks. I want you to vote, because a lot of us sit back. We're under usually 30%. And we want to encourage you here, and we the people of Eastern Kentucky, get out and vote. Some of you may not think that your vote counts, but trust me, it really does. But it's your right as a citizen of the United States and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Get out there and vote and voice your opinion. That's one of the reasons why we started, from my standpoint, we the people of Eastern Kentucky, is we want to encourage you all to get involved with economic development, community involvement, but we want you to also get out there and have a political impact in your community and things. One of the things that disturbs me, and we talked about this earlier for the podcast, We have a lot of people out there that have suggestions and have great ideas and this and that. They don't do anything with it. They don't talk to the right people. They don't go to people. They don't say, this is what I believe and what I feel that you should do as representing us. And one of the other frustrations is they feel that whether it be Democrat or Republican, that they are not being represented in their district, in their Senate area. But even, and I had this experience, I really did, in this last election. I was out there amongst people, and I had a chance to just really listen to them. And I'm talking about people in Breathitt County, Perry County, here in McGoffin, all over the place, and where I got to travel. And I really got to listen to what the people are saying. Number one thing that they said to me was a lack of representation. It was so funny. I went to 4 counties, and I was asking them who their representative was or who their senator was. And this is in the county clerk's office. And out of the 9 counties that I went into, only 2 could tell you where their state representative was and who their senator was. Now, y'all, that hurts me. This is where the election tallies and all that stuff right there, through the clerk's office, and they could not even answer who their current representative. And they say, well, I haven't seen him. They may have been here, in Kentucky. You've got 2 years in the House, and you've got 4 years in the Senate. And some of them made the comment to me, well, I haven't seen them in 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart, because these people are representing you.
I posted a video just a while back on my personal page, and anybody that follows me on my personal page, well, you've done good, because I've only got about 200 people on there. I make that choice because I want to make sure the people that are on my personal page are people that I actually know well. Mm-hmm. But one of the videos that I posted on there was an elected representative. I'm trying to remember. I want to say for the state of Rhode Island, but I may be wrong. But he's having a conversation with, he's standing at the podium having a conversation back and forth with the other representatives. And the other representatives are speaking on behalf of the business community, the coalition of businesses. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now. Mm-hmm. But one of the representatives speaks up and speaks to the man at the podium and says, do you think that we are to be listening to the people, or to these elected business, or these business people that know how to bring in business? And the man stands there and starts laughing at him and said, well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to represent the people that sent me here.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the business community thinks about it.
That's the way it should be, yeah.
And in my opinion, well, look to hear more from this young man. This guy made an impact. He made an impact on me. That's so much to the point that I saw this video and I shared it back out, and I can't tell you the amount of people probably did the same thing. We've lost the concept that you represent us.
Yes. Well, and that even goes to personal feelings versus the constituency that you represent. I myself, and I found this a lot in some of the lingo and the way, I've had, just for my experience to share with you all, I've been a Democrat for 40 years. I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm an old Eastern Kentucky Democrat. And what that means is I'm a pro-life person. I believe in First and Second Amendment, and I'm not necessarily, and it says in some of the research that I've done, Eastern Kentucky Democrats are not like national Democrats.
I would say that Eastern Kentucky Democrats are actually a lot more similar to a lot of national Democrats, but not representatives, not congressmen, not. I would say that I've said a lot of times that I'm a man without a party. Mm-hmm. Because I think there are a whole lot of people out there that are like me, mm-hmm. that don't feel like they're being represented by either party, like you're saying.
Right.
But that would still, their grandpa was a Democrat, their dad was a Democrat. They were raised Democrat. They identify with the word, but don't believe that the current iteration of it of the party is what represents them. Yeah,
well, and that was one of the things that's really close to my heart, is that representation factor. when I was out talking to people and hopefully getting their viewpoints and stuff, my personal belief system may not match what the people are out there. They ask me, what do you believe in? You believe in this, you believe in that, and another thing about our podcast here too, gang, is we're going to bring a lot of political influential people in as guests and things, and I got this perspective when Jimmy Neal Caldwell was here. So many people came up to me afterwards when they saw that podcast and they said, well, Jimmy was always my weather guy. All they knew was him on TV. But when he got down and started to explain some of the things of where he came from, they said, I really got to know him as a person.
Well, this ties back to the conversation that you and I and Adam had the last time, or actually I think it was you and I and Jimmy. We were talking about long-form conversation and how people have a desire for long-form conversation because we do have more than a 30-second attention span. And we want to understand, Jimmy is the weather guy, and a wonderful one at that.
Yes.
But people want to know a little bit about the people that they see every day or the people that represent them. Or they want to have some understanding of the world around them.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really hit me hard, with this whole process and the political ramifications here in Eastern Kentucky is our people want to be represented. They want to be heard. But with the situation that we have, they feel that they've been let down a lot of times because no one's hearing them and no one's paying any attention to them. I mean, when's the last time in our area have you ever heard about a town meeting? Having a representative come to your area and say, hey, this is what's happening. Get to know them, much like what we're talking about with Jimmy. That was the thing. It was good for me because he was my weather guy. And then all of a sudden I got to know who Jimmy Neal was, and he's a great guy, and he's got a great story. Now, so the people representing you folks out there today, talking about political impact, we need to get back to the mamaw and papaw politics. Everybody's saying, Terry, what the heck is that? Well, people knew everybody. In our area, there's two questions they always ask you. Who's your daddy and where are you from? Because people are interested in knowing people, and we're a little bit clannish and stuff, but to me, that's okay. People need to know each other. They need to know what the people that are representing them, what their personal feelings are, their belief system, but they also need to hear their people, and because that's who they're representing in Frankfurt or in Washington, D.C. when they go and all that. We've got to do that. So we got to change that. Mamaw-papaw politics is in the old days. If somebody's barn burnt down, well, we went on and got the tools and we helped them build it back up. If somebody needs their garden or needs some hay cut, here come everybody, You know
where the term stump speech comes from?
Oh, yeah.
Just for everyone else listening, the term stump speech, during the 1800s, Appalachia, the Appalachian region, and the California redwoods region were full of, obviously, California redwoods. In Appalachia, we were full of walnut trees.
Yeah.
And these walnut trees would get sometimes the size of, quite literally, people would live in houses made out of the stumps.
Wow.
So we're talking about 15, 20 foot wide cross trees. And there would be massive log companies and log entire families would come out and basically make up these logging companies. And
timbering happened before coal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And politicians would come out and stand on these stumps so large that people would have dances on them.
Oh, yeah.
And community gatherings on these stumps. And that's where the term stump speech comes from. A politician coming out, getting to know that entire community, standing up on their stump, and explaining to them who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to get more back to those because those were times, when's the last time? One of my favorites was Carl Perkins. Carl was the kind of guy that went into the people and found out what they were. And the reason I got to know him a little bit was through Eula Hall. And a couple months, probably about 6 months before Eula died, I got the opportunity to go down and meet her because I'd seen her book.
Tell everybody who Eula is.
Eula Hall? Oh my gosh, she was the one, her and Carl Perkins, that did all the medical clinics over down in Floyd County and down through Harlan and Hazard and all that. And Now it's a part of Big Sandy Clinics, Big Sandy, but her clinic right there that she started is right down there, and she started as she used to birth babies when she was young, but
midwife.
Yeah, she found out there wasn't a whole lot of people as far as a hospital in her area, and it's amazing to see a lady like her down past the Herald area there, but I got to spend an hour and a half with her. And I got to ask her a lot of questions about just the people that she got to meet and then came and talked to her specifically. Naturally, Carl brought Lyndon Johnson down there, when he was president. She talked to the Kennedy boys. She got to meet them, particularly Robert. Robert came back a couple times when they were talking about poverty in Appalachia and things like that. But she was a wonderful person. And part of we the people of Eastern Kentucky, too, one of the things that we want to get out there to our people that are listening to us every week, there's some success stories out there. There's some great people out there, and much like Jimmy that we talked about, and what Pete, the first week we had, these people have gone through tragedies in our area, and people don't know behind the scenes of what they've actually had to do, and really what kind of heroes they are. I mean, we wouldn't have any medical clinics here in Eastern Kentucky if it wasn't for you. I mean, she's the one out there that went and did it. We wouldn't have the hospitals. I think McDowell Hospital was one of that she was very instrumental in getting there up in that area. But we have a lot of great people in Eastern Kentucky, and what we need to do is tell their story. So if you got somebody out there that you'd like to have to be a guest or success story or a business person or whatever, that's what we want to do with this podcast, because we might be able to share some ideas, number one, that hit home to you, but number two, that might encourage you to become more involved in your community and also in the political sense. Got another question. This is kind of controversial, I got, and it was, Are our American political parties right now, how would you rate them? Have they let you down?
Well,
or do you think they've been successful?
That kind of goes back to the conversation we was just having.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they've been successful. I think at some point there's beginning to be, and everybody that follows politics at all can feel the switch that's going on with people like Josh Hawley on the conservative side and J.D. Vance on the conservative side.
Yeah.
There's beginning to be a switch on the conservative. Now, mind you, that it's a small percentage of conservatives that are starting to look into the working class American. The Democrat Party has, and they've made this statement, this isn't a secret, the Democratic Party's, what they believe that their voter base is 38-year-old suburban females. I mean, that's their primary block. They've made that statement. Ladies living in cul-de-sacs that drink wine in the evenings.
Well, it's, the Democratic Party is really a diverse party, I think.
It is. The Democratic Party is a diverse party.
Suburban housewives are very important.
The Conservative Party is diverse as well. But
you've got a lot of senior citizens that vote democratically,
But that said, there has been a switch even in my lifetime. In my lifetime, the Democratic Party, the Democrat Party that I grew up with, the Democrat Party that you're talking about, that you're a part of, Eastern Kentucky Democrats, was a party that was about the working man, was
That's
about
unions.
And I know this is going to be controversial to say because it's something that Donald Trump says, but was about America first. They were.
That is controversial.
It is very controversial, but it's a fact. The Democratic Party was about American made.
Well, you know that Donald used to be a Democrat first.
Donald was a Democrat the majority of his life.
That's right.
But they were about American made. They were about unions. They were about America first. The Democratic Party was up until, I don't know, a couple of years ago. The anti-war party, the more nationalist party. They didn't want to be spreading military bases across the United States. I don't know what's happened to the Democrat Party in particular in the last couple of years to where we are now wanting to become, there's becoming a flip between the conservatives and the Democrats, and that the Democrats now are wanting to start policing the world when the Republicans used to want to do it.
Well, I think we've all gone full circle. I don't think it's impacted us as much in Eastern Kentucky, what I'm seeing right now is Democrats. There's a lot of my friends have been Democrats for years, but because of the abortion issue and then also the guns issue and things of that nature.
Well, the guns issue never made any sense to me. I've never understood that. Well, now, mind you, I'm a registered independent. Culturally speaking, this is just personal information. Culturally speaking, I'm conservative. Economically, I'm extremely liberal. Registered independent because I don't think either party is touching on both of those bases at the same time.
Right.
The guns issue I've never understood because it's a lot like the illegal immigration issue. All right, let's block out the fact that we've got millions of them coming in here right now. Let's talk about the millions of illegal immigrants that are currently in the country that have been here for 15 years
Sure.
and have been working for 15 years. The concept that we're going to deport every one of these immigrants is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah,
it's the same as the concept when they
It's
start
not
looking at
morally
you.
correct either, I don't think.
Well, me personally, I'm a law enforcement kind of person. I think if you break the law, you deserve. If you came here illegally, you need to be put out.
I
But
agree. Yeah.
it's never going to happen. There's millions of
It's
them.
too many.
That's the same as the concept of we're going to take your. There is literally, maybe even more at this point. There is literally, at last count, 3 guns for every man, woman, and child in this country.
Oh, yeah.
So the concept of we're going to take away all the guns just doesn't make any sense. It's a moot point. It's an illogical argument.
No, it was so funny when I was on the campaign trail and things. I got to talk to a lot of people in Perry County and Knott County and particularly down in Breathitt. And what was really an eye-opener for me, because my stance, I've never been that much into hunting and things of that nature, but was one holler I went up down in Breathitt County, and as I walked up on the front porch to talk to these people, you'd see about 6 squirrels up there and about 4 rabbits and all that stuff, and they were hanging out there on the front porch. And after conversation and things with them and you know, talking to them about social services and things like that, getting them help or whatever, you know, some of them are really not interested in that because they've done this for generations where that's the way they eat. So to take those guns away from those people, it's going to be a burden on them and their family of putting things on the table or their gardens in the back and all that. And I think what's happened with when we ask the question, has your particular political party failed you? We're looking at the situation that's happening in Washington right now. There's a failure to address pertinent issues that need to be addressed: healthcare, education.
Well, let's look at it like
economic inequality and
the
stuff.
thing that always amazed me is to tie kind of back together and then to kind of pull apart as well. The thing that's always amazed me about the conservative and the Democratic parties, the Republican, the GOP, and the Democrats, is that both of them detest big. So the Democrats have always detested big business, super corporations, multinational corporations that care nothing about the country.
They're union based, and that's
you know they've always detested. Well, at least they give lip service to detesting it. If you start looking into the actual policies passed, that's not necessarily true. But let's go with the lip service. They gave lip service that they didn't like these super corporations. They hate big corporations. The Conservative Party has always hated big government.
Sure.
The fact of the matter is it's always amazed me that they can't come together and realize that they both have a disdain for just overly large, overly powerful entities. It doesn't matter if it's government or business. If you're overly large and you're overly powerful and you are impugning on my rights,
Sure.
then we have a problem. So it's always amazed me that they can't come together and see that. Now, that said, there is...
It's kind of like a gridlock or whatever.
There is kind of a gridlock.
You know, you're either on that side or you're on this side. I know one of the things in particular for me that I can relate to, because I was in the educational system for over 10 years, and it happened during COVID, and it was amazing. I mean, my heart went out to superintendents all across the state, because in my vocation at the time, I got to visit a lot of school districts, and I could actually see how these superintendents and school boards were just wringing their hands with what to do. And it's so amazing because of the way bureaucracy is right now in Frankfort. And I can speak for this because I've been there and I've also been in the schools. the Kentucky Education, Association. We just got a new commissioner, which is from Lawrence County, and Dr. Fletcher, and I think he's going to be good for us. But what happened was they were wanting to dictate to us, okay, you've only got so much money, here's your appropriation, and everything had to go to Frankfurt for approval. They didn't want anybody approving anything on the local level. This is the way it is, and these are the standards and the requirements and the qualifications you got to go by. And if you don't go by those, then you don't get your money. I mean, it was even to
You're
the bad.
sounding very conservative right now.
Well, I am conservative. I'm a moderate and conservative, That's what I said.
I agree.
40-year-old Democrat.
I agree.
But the point that bothers me and the hypocrisy comes here. When we got COVID, you know what came out of Frankfurt?
COVID.
You need to get your superintendent, and they need to talk to the local county health department, and you all are going to decide whether you're going to keep your schools open or not. And that to me is like, okay, Democrats basically want big government to control things or whatever.
So
Republicans don't want that. But here's a situation to where you're like, you want to keep me in a fist like what I can do in my appropriations.
So they're shifting
but
the
I'm
target.
going to pass this off and let you all make those decisions.
Right, we're going to shift the target over there.
Absolutely. And to me, there's so much hypocrisy in that. It's not when you want to control something and then when you're afraid to control, push it off on somebody else. No. And I'll tell you, in my dealings, my hat's off to the superintendents of schools. The stuff that they had to go through and boards of education. I mean, they had to make the decision, okay, do we go to visual learning, do we go in-house learning and things? I mean, it was a tough thing. It really was.
So here's my concept, and I put some thought into this. Because like I said, both parties are against big. One's just against one big thing, the other one's against another big thing. So I have put some thought into this. Now, corporations, the only entity in the world that can get the strength to stop a corporation is government. So that's why Democrats have always been for larger government, to be able to stop larger corporations. Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican, but he was the great trust buster. He busted up massive corporations that created monopolies. Mind you, we have worse monopolies now than we've ever had in the history of the country, but that's a different conversation.
Well, they've actually, I know the Justice Department in particular, because my background, I worked for Kroger for 18 and a half years. And there's been more antitrust suits with the Department of Justice lately, and I know this for a fact because Kroger and Albertsons out west were going to merge together.
Nita Khan is leading that.
And then what happened was they've now kicked that out. There's a lawsuit going against that because they felt like it would be a monopoly, in the retail business. And they've even sat back and said, well, we're going to diverse 400 stores to someone else or sell them off and this and that, so they wouldn't feel it would be that way. So there is a lot of that still going on right now. And I know, situations we have the airlines with
Khan is actually really big into busting up the
Spirit and Frontier.
She's actually really started pushing back. She started pushing more towards the antitrust movement. But the thing that amazes me about it is that, like I said, the Democrats want a larger government so that they can control corporations. The problem is that large corporations at that size have the ability to corrupt government.
Well, that leads into my other point I was going to talk about next. There's a tremendous amount right now of distrust and things that are going on, not only in the local scene or whatever, but in the national scene. And we know what's happening in the situation with the Republican, candidate. And I'm really concerned about that. Me as a person,
I'm concerned on the Democrat side
from
as well.
the moral standpoint, I guess what you could say. How could people that actually have looked at certain people's track record and seen where they've had convictions, that leads to another thing I was going to talk here a little bit later on, is if we have people that are convicted of a felony or this and that, should they be able to run for office?
Yes.
And it's a situation to where it's a trust factor. And a lot of people have told me in my research is they don't want it. they don't trust people. They ask questions now where they believed in democracy and all the things that had gone on in the past. And the biggest thing that I always see, if someone's coming out with bashing somebody or putting somebody's down, there needs to be some follow-up and explain why you're saying this. The facts and the things have to be there to go along with what you're saying. But people now are accepting the truth if it comes out of certain individuals' mouth.
Well, I wouldn't even just say certain individuals. Like I said, this goes back to the conversation we had with Jimmy too. Legacy media.
Yeah. People
are assuming the stuff coming out of CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, they're assuming that this stuff is true without actually doing some research on it. I absolutely got amazed. This was during the COVID crisis when one of the legacy medias, I can't remember which one it was, I want to say it was CNN, come out and stated, and this is no joke, that in summary, this is paraphrasing, you shouldn't research. You just take our words for it. That's
how you going to know the truth. You're not going to know the truth. You don't do research.
You just need to take the experts' opinions on it. Don't do your research. That's like going to a car salesman and not researching the car you want to buy.
Well, here's what it says on the sticker. I'm going
to take the salesman's opinion. He's the expert on it. That's just ridiculous. So, the idea of not researching what you're doing. Now, to get back to what you was just asking about whether or not you should be able to run for office if you were convicted of something.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely believe you should, because I do believe in democracy. I believe that if there is a candidate that has been convicted of a crime, if it is a justifiably bad enough crime, the people of the country will not elect them for an office.
And that was basically in my research that I found. They leave that up to the people or the constituents, because in some states they do pass laws. If it's a felony of this nature, you are not allowed to run. Or if it's this particular crime and things like that, states have already kind of put the classifications in there on a lot of them. But
well, you mentioned that I'm a registered independent, and it's no secret. Like I said, if you follow me on personal social media, I like Robert Kennedy. One of the things that he said about Donald Trump, there were quite a few states that tried to put the kibosh down on him running for office and being on the ballot. Some did. Some actually succeeded. He still won. It was weird. But one of the things that Kennedy said, and this seems to me like it's the same as the concept of when you were playing Little League Baseball and the other team had to forfeit because they were missing a player. You didn't feel like you got to win.
Yeah.
I want you at your best.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that we need to be blocking candidates from running on the ballot. That's not how democracy works.
Well, I think there's a certain qualification, and I think there's a certain responsibility if persons are going to represent other people, that the people have to have the faith in that person, and to be able to do that. Let me ask you this question, Cody, and it's kind of dear to my heart, and we'll go over here. Do you think the political parties today are cults?
Well, I was listening to Dr. Jordan Peterson on the way here. Are you familiar with Jordan Peterson?
Yeah.
Okay, I was listening to Peterson, and he was having a conversation with Brett Weinstein. Excellent conversation. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist, and Brett Weinstein's a doctor of evolutionary biology. And they were having a conversation, interestingly enough, about theology and religion.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Peterson stated, and this hit home for me, and I'm going to butcher it, but religion, there is a hierarchy of all things in human perception.
I think that takes back to Moses. You had the priests and all that kind of stuff.
But tribes. In human perception, and you basically what he was summing up as is all humans make decisions and view the world based on foundational beliefs that they have. And the baseline of that foundation is a form of their religion. So anything, and the Bible speaks about this too, anything that you base your life and belief system on is in effect a religion. And you and I were discussing this the other day. We were talking about atheism. And I said I happen to think that atheists are religious. They just are. Their religion is anti-religion. They base the foundation of their life on it, which means that they have created their own anti-religious religion. So do I think that political parties have become, in essence, a sort of religious cult? In a lot of ways, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at what hit me in the head when you were talking about that was Moses and them when they were in the wilderness. And they got all upset and come up to Moses and say, hey, the people are turning on us because you've been up here in the mountain, all this kind of stuff, and they're worshiping idols and things like that down there. That at that time was their religion. They believed in doing certain things. You're going to have to come back down here so they can believe in you again. Well, we know the situation about the serpents and all that. God was upset with what they were doing, making golden calves and all this and worshiping them rather than him. So he came down. When Moses saw it, he made the distinction. If a snake bites you and you're on this side of the line, then guess what? You're going to die, or you're going to choose to be able to come this way. We, because of the religious aspect, it's almost sifted over into political parties because I believe this and you believe that, so you're an adversary of me. And
I wouldn't even say it's almost.
the us versus them mentality, and that's one of the characteristics of a cult leader.
Which now I would say, look at it like this though too, Terry. I would say that it's not only just done that as far as political parties, I would say culturally as well. So a perfect example is the LGBTQIA plus movement, and that is all the acronyms.
Plus.
I did say plus. If you look at that movement, it is a movement of, well, either you are with us or you are against us.
Right.
There is no ambiance to the conversation. There's no, we need to discuss this and look at, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit okay, maybe this isn't. There's no gray area. It's either you are or you are not to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, not all, but to a lot of people, it's just black and white. Either, I can't tell you the amount of, I listen to these conversations. I can't tell you the amount of people that represent the movement that say, "Well, you're causing deaths."
Yeah,
that's quite a statement.
That sure is.
It's quite a statement to make that statement. So not only is it political, but culturally, people are separating off into tribes of either you're with us or you're against us, and we are losing the ability. And I think the only thing that's saving us right now is these long-form conversations. We are losing the ability to be able to just have discussions back and forth and have nuanced debate and conversation and see that, okay, well, maybe you're a little right and I'm a little right, and we're neither one completely right.
Well, the morality is such a big topic, and I've been a Christian, reborn Christian for over 50 years, and I've had the opportunity to because with the background I've been in theater and things of that nature, and you have a lot of people that have a different belief system when it comes to morals of what we're talking about. My whole stand is I still have friends today that are homosexual or bisexual, but they're friends of mine because I don't believe that we need to tell them the way that they need to live their life. Being a Christian is the ability to love people from whatever standpoint they are, and I just don't believe that things like that, legislation shouldn't be, morality should not be legislated. It is left up to the individual. They have to make their choice. They live with the choice that they want to do in their life, and we have to respect that. And I think we've gotten to a point in our country with our political system, or with the smaller groups or whatever that you're discussing, or the peoples that have a particular topic. You can say the same thing on abortion. You can say the same thing on capital punishment, And my situation, my personal belief system is I'm pro-life through and through, First, Second Amendment person. I've always been that way all my life. But I don't feel it's right for me as a Christian person, a born-again Christian, to come up here and say, now, let me tell you something, you're wrong because this is the way that your belief system and all that is, because the Jesus and the Christ that I know is a person that went with the warmongers. He went down with the prostitutes. He went down to these people. He did not condemn them or judge them, But he let his life be a shine and a testimony. And the most unique experience for me personally is when I'm talking about morality and this and that, people making decisions in their life, is when Jesus walked along the Sea of Galilee. You know, Peter and all of them were up in a boat. You know, him being the Son of God, he had the authority of God to say, all right, you guys that are in that boat right there, I want you to get out. I want you to come walk with me. We're going to go around, we're going to preach sermons all over the place, and we'll win all kinds of people to my Lord. And he had the authority to do that. But what Jesus said to them is very simply, come and see. And they went, as it says in the good book. And I think we need to let our light shine as people, particularly in religious circumstances, particularly when it comes to morality, because we don't really have that power to be able to judge. And one of the things that disturbs me, and I'm going to catch some heat over this, is a lot of people in our area in eastern Kentucky, you know, you ask them, what church you go to? Well, it's such and such church. It doesn't say, well, I'm an independent Baptist, or I'm a missionary Baptist, or I'm Church of God, or I'm Pentecostal, this and that, or Nazarene, you know. They don't say that. It's somebody else's churches, because a lot of times their doctrine of what they believe in is what they get from their preacher, rather than open the book for the first time and make that scripture true to them. Now, I'm going to give you a situation.
I got to counter you, Terry.
I'm going to give you a situation there. I had a New Testament instructor, professor at Campbellsville. That's where I went to school. Mm-hmm. And at Campbellsville, you have to have 6 hours of religious classes in order to be able to graduate. It's one of the prerequisites. Well, I was in a room, as I looked around, of about 30 men that were in their 20s and 30s that were going to be evangelists, were going to be pastors, things of this nature. And Dr. H.E. Cockrell, I'll never forget him, he's passed on now, but very staunch guy, about 6'4", always kind of spoke. He had a little thing here in the corner of his mouth, but he had a big stack of books, and he walks in there and goes, boom, and slams them on the desk. And as I looked around, everybody's pulling their jaw off the floor. He said, I want you to pick this book up right here. And it was the Bible. Mm-hmm. And he said, I want you to forget about what your preacher said, what your mom and dad said, what your vacation Bible school said, Sunday school teacher, or whatever. He said, I want you to take this book and open it up, and for the first time in your life, make that truth to you. All right. Well, I went back to my dorm room. And the campus, we had these big old 6-foot mirrors. And I'd been a Christian, like I said, since 10. And now I was about 18 years old. For about 8 years, you know, I was going through my life. I'd gone through all kinds of evangelism classes, witness to people, and all this stuff. Well, what happened was, I looked in that mirror and I said, Terry, where's your faith? What do you really believe in? What's truth to you? Is your truth something that someone else has told you? And that's the part that I get back to our political part. Do we believe that this is what Democrats are and this is what Republicans are, and we fight each other? Need to put that aside. We need to find out who that person is that you're going to vote for and represent, and know what the principles are and what they believe in and how they're going to best represent you to do that.
Well, that's what you're explaining there is what's known as representative democracy.
Sure.
And the thing about it is, see, this is where I got to counter what you just said.
Okay.
This is my opinion.
All right.
Okay, the same Jesus that you're talking about there, and me and you discussed this the other day, the same Jesus that you're talking about also cursed the persimmon tree. Now, why would Jesus curse the persimmon tree? He went to pick a persimmon, there was none there. So he cursed it. You will never bear fruit.
Yeah.
Well, that seems okay. That's a bit
But
harsh.
he's the man. He can kind of do what he wants to do.
That's a bit harsh. Why would he curse this? Okay, he just didn't have.
Well, he threw the money changers out of the temple too. There's a lot of people say, "Oh, what about that?" You know.
Why would he do that at this time though? It just didn't happen to have fruit, and because of that, you're going to curse it to never bear fruit ever. Right. You look at it, you go, okay, well that seems a little bit harsh, but then you start thinking about it. Okay.
Well, think about what God did in the Garden of Eden.
Hear me out though.
He asked them not to eat of the tree, and they do. Right. So what were they do?
Hear me out though.
They were condemned to die from that because that was his law.
Jesus cursed the tree because it had a role to play, and it wasn't living up to that role.
So you're saying there was a parable or there was a message behind
I think
what
the
he
entire
did?
Bible is parable.
Oh, yeah.
But the message behind it is you live up to your role. Now, you say that you can't legislate morality.
Yeah.
All through the history of this country, we've legislated morality.
That's right, and I think it's been wrong.
See, I disagree. I think without a baseline understanding of what it means to be American, without a baseline understanding of American moral values, you have what we have right now, a country of a lot of different groups infighting.
Well,
Now,
I think that's true.
Concept. Wait a minute, hang on.
All right,
Hear me out.
All right,
the
I'm
general
hearing.
concept of the country, the reason that this country has been great throughout history, and Democrats have pushed this to the extreme, and Republicans haven't embraced it enough. The great concept of this country, because you look at the country and everybody take, well, we're a melting pot. We're a melting pot. We bring everybody in. That's what we do. And even no matter what, they become Americans. The reason they became Americans is because we offered economic prosperity that no other country in the world had at the time. Okay?
Yeah, I
So
can
you
follow
could come.
that.
You could come here.
That's why everybody says come to America and get opportunity.
Right. You could come here with whatever underlying belief system you have.
Sure.
And the thing that made you connect with this country, sorry folks, the thing that made you connect with this country is that you came here and you got economic opportunity.
It's freedom.
And with enough economic opportunity and freedom, you became, in effect, American. Economic opportunity is waning in this country. We're at a 3% growth rate. So now we have no underlying structure that's bringing us together as a country, and the economic opportunity isn't what it used to be. The only way for societies to come together, that one of the great statements is, okay, you were discussing the Bible, Tower of Babel.
Sure.
How did God separate the people in the parable of the Tower of Babel? How did God separate the people away from each other, which in effect created warring tribes throughout the rest of history?
12 tribes.
By changing their language and changing their culture. If you don't have an underlying stable culture of this is what it means to be American, and when you come here, you are taking the responsibility on, I will become American, or you are not going to melt into the pot and you're just going to become a potato that's floating around by itself.
I think that you've got a lot of true statements about what it is now. But the one thing that we've got to understand, and I think we forget the patriotism part of things when we look back to how our country was established. Our country in America was established on religious freedom. It wasn't established on economics.
Right, but
there
that
were
was
people
due to
that
the Church of
came
England.
because of persecution
They're
and
due to
things.
the Church of England.
That's the reason why you have things in the First Amendment that basically says we will not stand in your way for your religious beliefs and what you're going to do, or even if you don't believe in religion, that's the freedom that you're going to be able to have. You have the freedom of speech, and the freedom of press. People have the rights to be able to do this. People know what freedom is, but our country, and we even have it on our money now. In God we trust. That's the reason that our country was founded, was on religious persecution, and they wanted to come to America to be free, to be able to practice their religion of what was their life.
Right.
It wasn't based on economics. Now, economics came around later on when businesses did things,
Hang on, though, I got a
and
counter.
the Pilgrims and
I
the
got a
Indians
counter.
and all that.
I agree with you. And Benjamin Franklin was a deist, and I'm pretty sure John Adams was an atheist. I'm not 100%, but I know there was one or two of the founding fathers that were atheists.
Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. And I agree with what you're saying, but what you also got to keep in mind that the most popular religion across the entire world at that time was Christianity.
Yeah,
Catholicism, Christianity, just Christianity in general.
Yeah.
So there was an underlying, even with
Protestants and Catholics, basically, is what you had.
Some of the founders of our country being non-religious, they still had an underlying, and I just read Benjamin Franklin's biography a few months ago, where he specifically talks about this, the fact that he's a deist, but he still goes to church with his community members, because there's an underlying foundation of this is what our society is made of, this is what we're built on. So that goes back to what I was saying. It's not necessarily that we need a religious doctrine in the country that everybody has to believe in, because you can't legislate.
Oh, no, you cannot. No. I mean, it's First Amendment.
They're at the time of our founding fathers, even if they didn't subscribe to the actual religious doctrine, there was a respect for
Absolutely.
the majority religious.
I think you hit the head on respect right there. We've gotten away from people respecting each other, and like I respect your opinion on your political preference, what you're thinking about this and that. I'm not telling you my way's the right way, but I will tell you my way's the right way for me, because I feel the conviction in my life of being able to do that. But there's so many things.
This goes deeper, though, Terry.
Well, I know it does. I know what you're talking about. There's a difference, though. We have grown as a country and progressed to where economics has become important. But, I think we need to get back to a little of the patriotic founding fathers, everybody helping each other, Indians at Thanksgiving and all those kind of things, Plymouth Rock experiences or whatever. I'm not saying we got to go back in time like that, but what I'm saying is the inner feelings and the things that we had when we started our country is like that.
Do you know how Thanksgiving was created?
Oh, yeah.
Not the actual story of Thanksgiving where the Indians sat down with the Pilgrims. No.
Yeah.
The actual holiday of Thanksgiving.
Well, it's for the harvest and stuff like that, right, for the Indians. No,
the holiday of Thanksgiving, the actual holiday, the national holiday that we all celebrate, was created by Abraham Lincoln. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
It was created by Abraham Lincoln after the Civil War.
Yeah,
now, we had just fought a bloody Civil War.
Yeah.
The country was separated.
Sure.
So Lincoln comes up with this idea. I'm assuming got together with some of his cabinet members. He said, we have got to come up with something that unites this country again around an ideal, a cohesive unit of this is something that we all are. We are all Americans. So Lincoln decided, okay, well, everybody knows this little holiday of Thanksgiving. Nobody really does anything to celebrate, but everybody's aware of it.
Harvest, yeah.
Harvest.
Fall harvest.
So Lincoln created, as we know it today, the holiday of Thanksgiving, and made a big deal out of it. Created parades, created the whole concept of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Was because Lincoln needed something, a foundational belief system, to unite the entire country around.
I agree. Well, I mean, we've seen that during any wartime situation. There's been rallying troops. One thing before we get off here today, we want to hear your questions and things and ideas you want to talk about in the future.
Real quick, Bud Montgomery did drop a good comment. Patty Howard said must have accountable. Bud Montgomery mentioned if you do certain crimes, you'll get your voting rights revoked. Why not candidates? What's your opinion?
That's basically, I agree with him to the point of, if I have someone that's been convicted as a felon or a particular offense, not necessarily will I hold that against that person, because I believe in second chances for people and this and that. But when you have a candidate up there, it's much like the responsibilities of a preacher, say. When he's up there in the pulpit, what do people do? They respect him.
Right.
He's the man. He's the man of God that's going to speak to us, blah, blah, blah. Well, my president, I want them to have those same characteristics. I want them to be somebody I can trust. I want somebody to be somebody I can believe in. And some of these other characterizations going along with what he says, description of a cult is charismatic leadership, authoritarian structure, manipulative techniques, isolation and control, us versus them mentality, financial exploitation, and extreme devotion.
I don't disagree.
Those are characteristics. Now, the thing I'm concerned about is you go, who is liable and who can run and who will be able to.
Right. See, that's my
people that have those characteristics, I don't feel should represent us. I don't think that's a good understanding of representing us.
I agree with you.
Because that talks to me almost like being a narcissist. And they want everything done their way. They want their money. They want to use other people's money, and they want to be that. And to me, that is a cult.
Well, just to tie it all back together from where we started.
Sure.
Because that was a good question, but to tie it all back together. Now, me personally, this is my personal belief. I believe in representative democracy.
Yeah.
I think you should be allowed to run. To answer your question, I think you should be allowed to run. But that said, I think, back to where we very first started, I think there should be multiple options for political parties, because I don't believe that the two candidates of the two major parties now
I agree with you,
should be forced upon people. I think people are intelligent enough, because I have respect for my fellow American citizens.
Sure, I do too.
To be able to look at a con man, either side, and say, no, this really doesn't represent me. I would prefer to have something else. And then when you're having a choice forced upon you, it feels wrong. There's never.
Well, that's the cult mentality. Open your mouth up, I'm going to shove it down and throat. You either like it or you don't.
You know, forcing any decision on Americans are really we're world renowned for we don't like being forced to do things.
Well, we've kind of gone over our time a little bit here.
Yeah, I think
that leads us into.
We want to thank our sponsors too.
Absolutely, but it leads us into. You all can help dictate this if you'd like. Is an hour enough time for us to talk about issues like that? Will we want to go an hour and a half or whatever? Give us some feedback, and we want more feedback from you to be able to do that.
To answer your question, Gloria Allen, Mama, how do you research candidates if you can't believe media or internet searches? That's a good question. Me personally, I'm a big fan of books and biographies.
Books and internet.
Like I said, I read Benjamin Franklin's biography. I'm just finishing up Robert Kennedy's. I'm finishing up a biography of Robert Kennedy, not written by him. I actually did read just a while back the biography that he wrote about his father, Robert Kennedy.
You talk about a great man. That was one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of doing independent research, and then as far as trusting news sites, watch multiple news sites, get the story from all different angles, and then that way that is your best option to be able to find out what actually happened.
You know, research is really important, and it's a great question. Don't depend on what people tell you.
Don't depend on a single source by any stretch.
Go back and research yourself, and I think we've gotten away from that when we talked about who do we vote for and this and that and getting out there. Y'all know your candidate. Don't just vote for him because he's a Republican or a Democrat. Vote on the best person that you think is going to be your representative in that position that you're voting for. And when you do that, we're going to have a better America, and we're going to have people that have the trust and the respect and those people that are running for those. And it goes like what Cody's saying. You know, I'm 100% behind that. If we could have an independent candidate run today, and I could believe in them and what their policies were and the direction, guess what, folks? I would vote for them. But, you know, the main thing is right now we're forced down our throat, well, you got to be a Democrat and you got to be a Republican, you got to vote straight ticket. That's crazy. A person that votes straight ticket is not voting their heart. They're voting a party, and I feel they're voting for a cult.
My personal, and this goes back real quick, we want to thank our sponsors, Granny Made Cheesecakes, Tech Holler, for all your business IT needs.
Big John
Howard, our producer, the legend.
Appalachia
TCG Gaming. Always, we want to thank. We want to thank Appalachia Insider, of course, and we want to thank BML Business Alliance.
Yeah, BML.
Real quick, one last thing, a perfect example of getting sources from different information. Now, I was raised a Democrat. I happen to think John Boehner was a terrible Speaker of the House. But just a while back, I read John Boehner's autobiography.
He's got some good stuff.
It was wonderful.
Yes, sir.
I absolutely enjoyed it. It was hilarious. Now, he read it. I listened to the audiobook, and he did the reading, and it was a little weak there. But the actual book, inside information about being Speaker of the House, his conversations with Obama, a story that he told about going and playing golf with Obama, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, get sources of information from all over, and then make a decision.
And the most important thing, folks, bottom line, you may differ with what somebody else believes, but respect them, and don't tear them down, and don't tell them they're wrong, because their belief system is what they believe. Your belief system is what you believe. So we need to love each other, and we need to respect each other. And with that, Cody, I'm going to say adios. We had a great discussion, I feel.
Auf Wiedersehen.
We appreciate you all. Give us your feedback. As always, we really appreciate, because you know what? You are the people of Eastern Kentucky, and we appreciate you. So,
That's
good night.
beautiful.